Hey everybody. Thanks for tuning in today to our Facebook Live in the Garden series of talks that we're doing. I'm Eric Hammond with Colorado State University Extension, and today I'm just going to talk real briefly about how to structurally prune young shade trees. So we're going to be pruning this tree back here, which is a chinkapin oak. It's in pretty good shape because I've been pruning it the last few years already. This is the tree we're going to work on. Before we get started with the actual pruning, just a quick word on tools. So, of course, and mine are down here on the ground. Of course, you got your pruners, and this is a good pair of bypass pruners where the blade slides past the anvil. That's the kind you want for tree pruning. And then I have here my trusty razor saw. So this one's getting a little old, a little dull, but it's still more than good for this sort of work. These are readily available now. Any hardware store, any of the big box stores sell them. Good pruning saw. You could also use a Sawzall or something like that. This is obviously too small a tree to be getting the chainsaws. So, on top of that, I have a pretty good pole pruner here that our office owns. It's got both a saw and then a pruner. And this tree is tall enough that I'm probably going to need to use this or this step ladder to reach some of the upper cuts. For a small tree like this, you can do pruning from a step ladder or an orchard ladder, no problem, because all the branches are small, so it's pretty safe. But if you're pruning larger branches, never use a ladder. Dangerous. Swinging branches might knock you off it, could fall. Don't do it. So those are the tools that we're going to be working with. So let's step back and take a look at this tree. So there are more organized ways to think about structural pruning, but the simplest part for a young tree, the simplest thing for a young tree like this, the most important thing that you want to focus on is first removing any dead, broken, rubbing branches. And I don't have any of those in this particular tree because I've been pruning it every year. So if you did, you take out those first. After that, you're going to want to make sure that you have a single dominant leader to the top of the canopy. So one dominant trunk, not a lot of trunks of the same size, but one dominant trunk. So you can see we have our dominant trunk going up, and then up near the top, actually further than I can reach, it splits and we have co-dominance up there. So I'm going to want to pick one of those and get rid of the other. Probably in this case, it's about 6 to 1, half dozen of the other. They're very similar, but you want to choose a combination of the branches. You want to choose the branch that's some combination of the straightest and the tallest. And the big thing is just to pick one. So we'll deal with that. We also want to make sure that our lateral branches are, we're suppressing their growth if they're competing with the main leader or if they're getting too big. We want all of our lateral branches, here, all the way up, to be half the size or less of their parent branch, the main trunk. So they form what's called a branch collar, which is too technical for this short talk, but it's a really good thing. It's kind of magical in pruning. We also want to make sure that we're removing the lower branches before they reach 2 inches in diameter ideally, but for sure before they get bigger than 4 inches in diameter. Because at that point, they may have heartwood in them, which is dead and not able to fight decay, and we don't want to expose it. So we want to get them off before they get to 2 to 4 inches. No branch on this tree is bigger than 2 inches, so we don't really have to worry about that yet. But I want to keep their growth rate slow so they don't get larger than that before I take them off. Quick note, because I know sometimes people get confused on this. Trees grow from their tips, the buds, and then they grow in diameter. They don't grow from their base like grass. So this branch is at the height this branch will be at forever. It's not going to move up as the tree grows. Simple thing, but I find sometimes it's a bit of a point of confusion. So those are going to be our goals. So in terms of things to do, I already pointed out the codominance at the top. Some of these really upward growing branches risk competing with the leader in future years, so I may shorten them to slow them down a bit. A few of these branches actually look like they're bigger than half the size of their parent, so I'm going to do some pruning on those to slow them down a little bit. And then I may even start to remove some lower limbs today. Generally, the rule of thumb is you want at least 2/3 of the tree to be canopy with only 1/3 or less exposed trunk, or bare trunk rather, without branches. So I guess without further ado, let's get to the pruning. I think that highest cut I'm gonna have to use the pole saw for. Even the step ladder is not gonna be good enough. So I'm gonna switch my angle here. And I'm gonna choose. These are really, similar, but I'm going to remove the one on my my left, hopefully. So I missed it. Cut it. Good. So we got one dominant leader. That's a good first step. Then looking at the tree, I want to slow down. I want to get rid of some of the vertical growth and slow down some of the growth of these higher lateral branches so they don't compete with the leader this year. So I'm going to, I think I'm going to grab the step ladder actually for this. Hang on. Make a better cut with my hand pruner. Branch is getting a little large and parts of it are vertical, so I'm going to make some reduction cuts, which is where you take a small branch back to a larger branch. So I'm going to make a reduction cut here, so on that one, and then I'm going to come back to here. I'm just going to above my head. All that's just to slow the growth down. So when I make that pruning cut, I'm taking off buds that would become leaves that would do photosynthesis. I create energy for that branch and increase its growth rate. So by taking off buds which would become leaves, I slow down how fast that branch is going to grow. And I'm going to do one more cut on this one. I'm going to do another reduction cut. I'm actually going to do this one, well, I guess I'll go here. So when you're making that cut, you just make it back right above where the branch is and at a slight angle so water runs off it. You don't need to put a big angle on it. See, what else can I do on this side while the ladder's over here? So a lot of this is okay. I don't want to do more pruning than I have to do because pruning is stressful for the tree. I just need to do the minimum to keep the tree kind of in line and work on its structure. So other things on this side of the tree. So this branch here is growing a little faster. It's about half the size of the parent, so I want to tap the brakes on it a little bit, slow it down just a bit. So I'm going to do a reduction cut somewhere up here. I don't have a lot of options, and the ones I have I don't care for that much. Maybe I'll try to do it on this leg. Let's see what we'll do here, even though I don't like the angle of that branch. Okay. Maybe hard for you to see from over there, but I'm going to do just a little bit on this branch here, again to slow it down. So all these cuts have a very similar objective, just to slow down and subordinate these lateral branches to the central leader. Also on this branch, these are very vertical. I'm not a fan of that, so I'm going to come in and make a cut somewhere along here. I'm going to do a heading cut here, which is a cut I don't really recommend doing a lot on young trees, but I don't have a lot of options. So I'm going to come back to an outward growing, outward facing bud along here. This will probably release the buds behind it and make a little bit of a bushy habit, but I just didn't have a lot of choices. There was so little branching there. Let's see. It's often a good idea to take a step back and look at the tree as a whole. So I see one more that I really want to address, and then we'll do some work on the lower branches. You can see we've got much more. We've kept the tree's natural shape, but we've got much more of a dominant leader, and we've taken a little bit off the tips of those fast-growing branches just to slow them down. Do one more cut over on this side just to slow down this one other real aggressive vertical growing branch. Just leave it at that. So yeah, I think, you know, we've done a fair amount of work up top. I have some poorly spaced branches I might deal with later if I still have pruning budget left. For a young tree like this that's rapidly growing, I could take up to 25% of the foliage or even a little more if I needed to. So now, you know, I've got the central leader, I've subordinated the the lateral branches, slowed their growth rate. Now I'm gonna just deal a little with these lower branches. I want to slow them down because they'll be coming off eventually. And I don't think I'm going to remove any this year because I really don't need to. But I'm just going to I'm going to take actually quite a bit off them to slow their growth rate down so I can take them off easily in a future year. So on this one, I'm going to come back to here. Actually, I'll take off quite a bit. Again, just to slow the growth rate down. That's my goal there. So the reduction cut. Plus I won't hit it when I'm mowing the lawn. I'll do a reduction cut here, again, just taking off leaves or future leaves to slow the growth rate down. And actually a lot of these lower branches aren't too big of a problem right now. So I'm going to leave them so they'll still be able to do photosynthesis and help the tree establish and grow quickly. I don't want to do more than I have to or I'll slow the growth rate of the tree down. So yeah. That's the basics of what we're doing. The next steps for this tree that we're not there yet, it's too small, would be selecting the lowest permanent branch, the lowest branch that'll be on the tree for its life, right? So that's usually between, you know, 8 and 13 to 15 feet in a landscape, depending if it's over a street or something like that. So on this tree, you know, it might be something, the lowest permanent branch would probably be somewhere around here or here. And then I would start picking branches above that that are well spaced and removing the ones in between, right? So you want about, when you're picking those permanent branches, you want about 5% of the tree's expected mature height between them. So if this tree was supposed to get 50 feet tall, I'd want 2.5 feet between the permanent branches. And I'd want no one coming out directly on top of another. But we're not quite there with this tree yet, so. I think that's the basics of structural pruning. If there's questions, leave them in the chat and I'll get back to you at some point here today. For sure, I'll be checking up on it, and I'm happy to answer any of them. Send me pictures of your tree. I know I owe some of you emails about trees, so thanks. Have a good day, everyone. Happy Earth Day.